The silent observers. The Vexteri monitoring station hung invisible in Earth's thermosphere, its quantum-shifted hull rendering it undetectable to what its operators considered primitive human technology. Inside, senior observer Ixel watched streams of data flow across crystalline displays, their purple light casting strange shadows across their segmented exoskeleton. Another inefficient biological process, Ixel noted, mandibles clicking in what passed for amusement among their kind. They still rely on cellular respiration for energy production. How they achieved even basic spaceflight is beyond comprehension. Their assistant, Nexer, bobbed in agreement, crystalline sensors refracting light in complex patterns. The Vexteri had long since evolved beyond biological limitations, their consciousness housed in crystalline matrices that drew power directly from quantum fluctuations. They viewed organic life as a primitive stepping stone on the path to true enlightenment. But they needed Earth's resources. The planet possessed unique concentrations of quantum-reactive minerals, crucial for maintaining the vast networks that sustained Vexteri civilization. Their harvesting operations have been running for 3 solar cycles now, quantum-cloaked extractors drawing precious materials from the deepest ocean trenches. The humans remain oblivious, Nexer reported, interfacing directly with the monitoring systems. Their deep-sea detection equipment continues to register only what they expect to find. The biological limitation of their neural processing prevents them from recognizing the patterns that would reveal our presence. 7 kilometers below the waves, Dr. Sarah Martinez stood in the observation dome of the deep-sea research station Nautilus, watching schools of lanternfish swim through the absolute darkness. Their bioluminescent displays created patterns that shouldn't exist at this depth, but she couldn't quite put her finger on why. Dr. Martinez, her assistant's voice crackled through the internal comm system. You might want to see this. We've got another anomaly in the mineral deposit readings. Sarah made her way through the station's cramped corridors, her movements practiced after months of living and working in the underwater facility. The research station's main lab was cluttered with holographic displays showing chemical composition analyses, current patterns, and geological surveys. Look at this, James Chen said, pointing to a complex graph. The distribution of rare earth elements in these samples. It's all wrong. The ratios keep shifting, but not in any way that matches known geological processes. Sarah studied the data, her mind making connections that she couldn't quite articulate. She'd spent her entire career studying deep-sea geology, and something about these readings violated everything she knew about how Earth's processes worked. But every time she thought she saw the pattern, it seemed to slip away, like trying to remember a dream. Send this to Dr. Patel at the Indian Ocean Station, she said finally. And Dr. Yoshida in the Pacific. I want to know if they're seeing anything similar. Above the planet, Ixel received an alert from one of their automated systems. Curious, they transmitted to Nexer. The humans are collecting samples near harvesting site Gamma 7. Their instruments should be registering nothing unusual. Their biological sensing equipment is unreliable, Nexer responded dismissively. Random neural firing creating false patterns. It is the fundamental flaw of organic processing. But Sarah Martinez wasn't relying solely on instruments. As she reviewed the incoming data from research stations across the globe, she was seeing something that the sophisticated Vexteri sensors missed entirely. The patterns of life itself in the deep ocean were changing, responding to the invisible harvesters in ways that no machine could detect. She pulled up a visualization of deep-sea bioluminescence patterns from the past year. The lanternfish were moving differently, their shoals creating new configurations that seemed to trace invisible objects. Deep-sea organisms were adapting their behaviors in response to something that officially didn't exist. Life finds a way, she muttered, remembering the old quote. And it shows us what our instruments miss. In the station's communication center, Sarah composed a carefully worded message to a select group of colleagues around the world. On the surface, it appeared to be about marine biology research coordination. But buried within the technical language was a different message, one that would be understood only by those who had noticed the same impossible patterns. Something was hiding in Earth's oceans, harvesting resources, while believing itself invisible to primitive human senses. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had dismissed biology itself as inferior to their technology, never realizing that life's ability to adapt and respond to changes in its environment could reveal what their quantum cloaking tried to hide. In their thermospheric observation post, the Vexteri continued their work, confident in their technological superiority. They never noticed how their presence was being revealed not by human technology, but by the very primitive biological systems they dismissed. They didn't understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their machines, but in their ability to learn from and interpret the responses of life itself. Sarah Martinez closed her eyes, letting her mind process everything she'd observed. The pieces were coming together, forming a picture that would soon reveal to humanity that they weren't alone in the universe. And when that revelation came, their visitors would learn that dismissing biological intelligence as primitive had been their first and greatest mistake. The game of hide and seek was about to end. And humanity, despite all appearances, had been the ones doing the seeking all along. "Send the analysis to all stations," she instructed James. "It's time to show our friends upstairs that sometimes the best technology isn't technology at all." Above Earth, Ixal's monitoring systems continued to show that everything was proceeding according to plan, their quantum harvesters operating undetected. But in research stations across Earth's oceans, humanity was quietly proving that there were more ways to see than through mechanical eyes, and more ways to think than through crystalline matrices. The storm was gathering. And when it broke, the Vexteri would learn that underestimating biological intelligence was a mistake they would never make again. Patterns in the noise. Dr. Sarah Martinez's message sparked a quiet revolution in deep-sea research stations worldwide. Within weeks, scientists across the globe began correlating their observations, building a picture that no single facility could have assembled alone. While the Vexteri watched their sophisticated sensors for signs of detection, humanity was writing a new chapter in the art of observation. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, studying bioluminescent patterns in the Mariana Trench, was the first to make the crucial connection. The organisms aren't just reacting to the harvesters, she explained during a secured quantum-encrypted conference call. They're mapping them. Every adaptation in their behavior creates a living sonar network. In her Tokyo laboratory, Yuki projected a three-dimensional model compiled from thousands of hours of deep-sea footage. Points of light represented bioluminescent creatures, their movements tracking invisible disturbances in the water. When layered over time, they revealed clear patterns of movement, the paths of the Vexteri's quantum-cloaked harvesters. Nature has already solved the problem of detecting them. Sarah responded, her holographic image flickering slightly. We just needed to learn how to read the signs. Above Earth, senior observer Ixal noticed an increase in deep-sea research activities, but dismissed it as typical human inefficiency. They cluster their efforts without purpose. They transmitted to the Harvesting Control Center, another demonstration of their limited cognitive architecture. But humanity's seemingly chaotic approach masked a coordinated effort that the Vexteri's rigid, hierarchical thinking couldn't comprehend. While individual research stations appeared to be conducting unrelated studies, they were actually pieces of a vast living detection grid. Dr. Carlos Rivera, working from a research vessel in the Atlantic, developed a breakthrough in translating bioluminescent responses into precise spatial data. The fish aren't just avoiding the harvesters, he explained to his colleagues. They're using their own bodies to map quantum distortions. We've been looking at a natural quantum sensor network without realizing it. The implications were staggering. Earth's deep-sea life had evolved to detect and respond to quantum-level disturbances, an ability the Vexteri had never considered possible in primitive biological organisms. Humanity wasn't just learning to detect the alien presence. They were learning from life itself how to perceive reality in new ways. In a secure facility beneath the Indian Ocean floor, Dr. Amara Patel worked on converting these biological observations into a practical defense system. If we can understand how marine life detects quantum disturbances, she theorized, we can replicate and enhance that capability. Her team developed what they called bioquantum sensors, technology that mimicked and amplified the natural sensing abilities of deep-sea creatures. Unlike traditional quantum detection systems, these biological hybrids could detect the subtle distortions created by Vexteri technology without relying on conventional quantum mechanics. They expect us to try to detect them using primitive versions of their own technology, Amara explained during a global security briefing. But we're not playing their game. We're creating something entirely new. The Vexteri remained oblivious to these developments, their sophisticated sensors scanning for technological advances that matched their understanding of progress. They never considered that humanity's primitive biological nature might lead to innovations their crystalline minds couldn't conceive. Sarah Martinez, now coordinating the global response from the Nautilus, watched as humanity's understanding of bioquantum detection grew exponentially. Research stations across the planet began installing the new hybrid sensors, creating a web of awareness that the Vexteri's technology couldn't detect because it wasn't purely technological. Their greatest weakness, she noted in her secure log, is their certainty that their way is the only way forward. They've forgotten that evolution spent billions of years solving problems they're only beginning to understand. The pieces were falling into place. While the Vexteri harvested Earth's resources, humanity quietly prepared a response that defied their visitors' fundamental assumptions about biological intelligence. Each day brought new discoveries as scientists learned to interpret and apply the deep wisdom encoded in Earth's living systems. In the depths of the Mariana Trench, a new kind of sensor array took shape, its design inspired by the neural networks of marine organisms. Unlike conventional quantum detection systems, these bioquantum networks were almost alive, adapting and evolving in response to the Vexteri's presence. We're not just building a detection system, Dr. Tanaka explained to her colleagues. We're growing one. And because it's based on biological principles the Vexteri have dismissed, they can't see it forming right under their sensors. The awakening of humanity's defensive network approach, each piece carefully concealed within what appeared to be normal oceanic research. The Vexteri, watching from above with their crystalline minds, saw only scattered points of primitive scientific inquiry. They never recognized that these points were connecting, forming a pattern that would soon reveal the true capacity of biological intelligence. In her quiet moments, Sarah Martinez sometimes stood in the Nautilus's observation dome, watching the dance of bioluminescence in the darkness. The patterns had become clear to her now, a living language written in light and movement. She knew that humanity's response to the Vexteri would soon change the course of both civilizations. They think they're watching us, she mused, but they've never learned how to truly see. The bioquantum network continued to grow, invisible to the very beings it was designed to detect. Humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn from and adapt alongside nature itself, was about to demonstrate why dismissing biological intelligence was a mistake the Vexteri would never forget. The hidden strength. The first warning that the Vexteri received came not from their sophisticated quantum sensors, but from a sudden, inexplicable failure of 3 harvesting units in the Pacific Ocean. Senior observer Ixel's crystalline form flickered with distress as the data streams went dark. Impossible, they transmitted to the command network. These units are impervious to primitive detection methods. Check for equipment malfunction. But there was no malfunction. Deep beneath the waves, humanity's bioquantum network had begun its work. The hybrid sensors, based on the natural quantum sensitivity of deep-sea organisms, were not just detecting the Vexteri harvesters, they were beginning to interfere with them. Dr. Sarah Martinez stood in the Global Command Center, recently constructed in a vast underwater facility near the Mariana Trench. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of every Vexteri harvester on Earth, their locations revealed by the living sensor network humanity had grown. 6 months, she said to the assembled military and scientific leaders. 6 months they've been harvesting our resources, thinking we couldn't see them. Time to show them what biological intelligence is really capable of. The bioquantum network had evolved far beyond its original design. Like the marine organisms that inspired it, the system had adapted, developed new capabilities. It didn't just detect quantum distortions, it had learned to manipulate them. Admiral Chen, coordinating the global naval response, studied the tactical display. All task forces are in position, he reported. Submarines equipped with bioquantum projectors are ready to activate on your mark. In orbit, IXL received increasingly concerning data. More harvesters were going offline, and the quantum fluctuations they were detecting made no sense according to their understanding of human technological capabilities. Expand monitoring parameters, they ordered. Search for any sign of advanced technological development we may have missed. But they were looking in the wrong place, still trapped in their assumption that advancement meant moving away from biological systems rather than working in harmony with them. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's voice came through the command center's communication system. Bioquantum field generators at full capacity. The network is stable and self-sustaining. We can proceed with Phase 2. Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment that would reveal humanity's true capabilities to their unwanted visitors. Initiate contact protocol, she ordered. Across Earth's oceans, the bioquantum network shifted from passive detection to active transmission. The signal it sent was unlike anything the Vexteri had encountered, not purely technological, not purely biological, but a fusion of both that their crystalline minds struggled to process. In their orbital station, IXL, and their fellow observers experienced something approaching panic as their sensors suddenly overloaded with data they couldn't interpret. The quantum field around Earth had become alive in ways their science had never predicted possible. Greetings, Senior Observer IXL. Sarah's voice came through their communication system, speaking perfect Vexteri language. We've been watching you watching us. Perhaps it's time we had a proper conversation about resource harvesting and the limitations of purely technological evolution. The shock that rippled through the Vexteri observation post was palpable. Their supposedly undetectable quantum communications had been not just intercepted but decoded and understood. How? IXL transmitted, their crystalline form flickering in confusion. Your species lacks the technological basis for quantum field manipulation. Sarah's response was meant to be educational. You assumed that biological systems were primitive, incapable of quantum-level interactions. But life on Earth has been managing quantum effects for billions of years. We didn't need to invent new technology. We just needed to learn from what nature had already perfected. To demonstrate her point, she activated the next phase of humanity's response. Across the globe, bioquantum field generators began emitting patterns that mimicked and amplified natural oceanic quantum fields. The Vexteri harvesters, designed to work in normal quantum conditions, began shutting down as their operating environment became incomprehensible to their rigid programming. Your harvesting operations are now suspended, Sarah announced. We've been able to disable them for months, but we wanted to understand your capabilities fully before making contact. I hope you appreciate the irony. Your superior technology was defeated by principles you dismissed as primitive. In orbit, IXL and their fellow observers were facing a paradigm shift that threatened to shatter their entire worldview. The humans hadn't just detected them. They had developed an entirely new form of quantum manipulation based on biological principles that the Vexteri had never considered valid. We have a choice to offer you, Sarah continued. We can demonstrate further capabilities of our bioquantum network, or we can begin discussions about a mutual exchange of knowledge and resources. We're particularly interested in understanding how your crystalline consciousness works. After all, biological systems might offer solutions to problems you haven't been able to solve. The Vexteri observation post fell silent as they processed this unprecedented situation. Their entire understanding of technological progress, based on the assumption that moving away from biological systems was the path to advancement, had been upended. In the command center, Sarah watched the quantum fluctuations that indicated the Vexteri's internal debate. Humanity had revealed its hidden strength, demonstrating that true advancement didn't mean abandoning biological principles, but understanding and building upon them. The storm they had prepared for so carefully was about to break, and the Vexteri were about to learn that underestimating humanity's potential had been a mistake of galactic proportions. Thunder strikes. The Vexteri response came not in words but in action. Their orbital station's quantum signature suddenly intensified, and new harvesters began emerging from previously hidden dimensional pockets around Earth's oceans. "They're escalating," Admiral Chen announced, watching the tactical displays, multiple quantum signatures appearing worldwide. Sarah Martinez had expected this. The Vexteri, despite their advanced evolution, were still bound by pride and the inability to accept that their fundamental assumptions about biological life might be wrong. "Deploy the neural resonance fields," she ordered. Dr. Amara Patel's voice came through the command network. "Neural resonance generators activating. Let's show them what happens when crystalline technology meets biological quantum fields." The bioquantum network humanity had grown throughout Earth's oceans came fully alive. Unlike traditional defensive systems, it didn't try to match the Vexteri's technology directly. Instead, it began emitting patterns based on the quantum fields generated by Earth's deep-sea organisms, patterns that were completely alien to the Vexteri's crystalline processing systems. In orbit, Ixal experienced something unprecedented: confusion. Their quantum sensors, designed to process information in rigid crystalline patterns, couldn't interpret the organic chaos of the human response. It was like trying to understand a language that violated the fundamental rules of communication. "Their defense system is impossible," Ixal transmitted to the Vexteri command network. "It operates on principles that contradict established quantum theory." Sarah's voice came through their communications again. "Not impossible, Observer Ixal, just beyond your experience. Life found ways to manipulate quantum fields long before conscious beings began theorizing about them. We simply learned to listen and adapt." To demonstrate her point, she activated the next phase of humanity's defense. The bioquantum network began generating fields that mimicked and amplified the natural quantum patterns of deep-sea bioluminescence. The effect on the Vexteri's new harvesters was immediate and devastating. The crystalline machines, unable to process the organic quantum patterns, began to falter. Their rigid programming, designed to operate in predictable quantum conditions, couldn't adapt to an environment that seemed to violate their fundamental understanding of reality. "Your harvesters are experiencing the equivalent of quantum vertigo," Sarah explained. "Your technology expects quantum fields to behave according to crystalline logic, but biological systems don't follow those rules. They adapt, they evolve, they create patterns your rigid systems can't predict or counter." In the Mariana Trench, humanity's most ambitious defense system activated, Dr. Tanaka had called it the quantum coral, a living network of bioengineered organisms that could generate and manipulate quantum fields the way natural coral created and shaped its environment. "Quantum coral network is online," Yuki reported, generating full-spectrum biological quantum interference. The effect was beyond anything the Vexteri had believed possible. Their harvesters, trapped in the altered quantum environment, began shutting down or displaying behaviors their creators had never anticipated. Some seemed to develop primitive forms of quantum consciousness, their crystalline programming corrupted by exposure to biological quantum patterns. "This is impossible," Ixal transmitted, their usual composure shattered. "Biological systems cannot achieve this level of quantum manipulation." "You're partially right," Sarah responded. "Biological systems alone didn't achieve this. We did it by learning from them, by understanding that evolution spent billions of years solving problems your civilization is only beginning to comprehend. We didn't try to transcend biology. We embraced it, learned from it, and built upon it." In orbit, The Vexteri observation station's own systems began to show signs of instability. The bioquantum fields were affecting even their supposedly impervious crystalline consciousness matrices. "You have a choice," Sarah continued. "You can continue this confrontation, and we will demonstrate more of what biological quantum manipulation can achieve. Or you can accept that your assumptions about biological intelligence were wrong, and we can begin a dialogue about how our different approaches to evolution might benefit each other." Humanity's response had shaken the Vexteri's certainty in their evolutionary superiority. Their harvesting fleet was in chaos, their quantum communication networks disrupted by patterns they couldn't comprehend, and their own consciousness matrices were struggling to maintain coherence in the face of biological quantum interference. In the command center, Sarah watched the quantum fluctuations that indicated the Vexteri's internal debate. The bioquantum displays showed their network operating at full capacity, Earth's oceans alive with patterns of energy that merged technology and biology in ways that defied conventional understanding. "They're processing the implications," Dr. Patel observed. "Their entire civilization is built on the assumption that moving away from biological systems was the path to advancement. We've just shown them that they might have taken a developmental dead end." Admiral Chen smiled slightly. "Sometimes the best way forward isn't to abandon your roots, but to understand them better." The quantum coral continued its work, filling Earth's oceans with living quantum fields that were simultaneously primitive and more advanced than anything the Vexteri had developed. It was a demonstration not just of humanity's defensive capabilities, but of the potential that existed in working with nature rather than trying to transcend it. The storm had broken, and the thunder of humanity's response was echoing through quantum fields across the planet. The Vexteri were about to learn that true advancement sometimes meant looking back to move forward, and that dismissing biological intelligence had been their greatest miscalculation. A new understanding. In the aftermath of humanity's demonstration of bioquantum technology, the Vexteri observation station hung silent in Earth's orbit. Their harvesting fleet had been completely neutralized, their quantum communication networks disrupted by patterns their crystalline minds struggled to comprehend. Finally, Ixal transmitted a message that would reshape the relationship between their civilizations forever. "We request a dialogue. Our assumptions require revision." In the underwater command center, Sarah Martinez allowed herself a small smile. "Deactivate the aggressive quantum interference patterns," she ordered, "but maintain the detection grid. Trust needs to be earned." The quantum coral network shifted its output, the bioengineered organisms adjusting their quantum fields to a less disruptive configuration. The Vexteri systems began to stabilize, though their harvesting units remained offline, trapped in the altered quantum environment of Earth's oceans. "We offer exchange of knowledge," Ixal continued, their transmission patterns showing signs of what humans would recognize as humility. "Your biological quantum manipulation offers possibilities we had not considered." Dr. Yuki Tanaka's team had already prepared a secure conference facility, combining traditional technology with bioquantum fields to create a space where both species could communicate freely. "The integration chamber is ready," she reported. "We can begin direct discussions whenever they're prepared to come down from orbit." The Vexteri's arrival at the underwater facility revealed another surprise. Their crystalline forms were not purely technological as humans had assumed. "You maintain biological components," Dr. Patel observed, studying their quantum signatures. "Vestigial," Ixal explained, their form shifting colors in what the humans now recognized as discomfort. "We believe them imperfections to be eliminated through evolution. But your achievements suggest we may have been premature in this assessment." Sarah led the first formal meeting between the two species. The conference room's walls pulsed with living quantum fields, a visible demonstration of how humanity had bridged the gap between biology and technology. "Our civilizations took different paths," she began. "You sought to transcend biological limitations through crystalline technology. We chose to understand and build upon our biological heritage. Both approaches have their strengths, but perhaps the greatest advancement comes from combining them." The Vexteri observers displayed patterns that their quantum translators identified as intense interest when humanity shared the details of their bioquantum discoveries. The idea of working with natural systems rather than replacing them was revolutionary to their crystalline minds. Your quantum coral, Ixel mused, studying the data. It achieves quantum effects our most advanced technology cannot replicate, and it does so by evolving, adapting. Life has been solving complex problems for billions of years, Dr. Tanaka explained. Every organism on Earth is the result of countless iterations of trial and error, each solution tested against reality itself. We didn't need to reinvent quantum manipulation. We just needed to learn from the masters who had been doing it all along. The implications staggered the Vexteri. Their civilization had spent millennia trying to perfect quantum technology through pure engineering, never considering that nature might have already developed solutions they couldn't match. The resources we sought to harvest, Ixel admitted, were to maintain our quantum matrices. Our crystalline systems are efficient, but they require constant replenishment. Your bioquantum technology seems to sustain itself. Life finds a way. Sarah quoted, smiling. That's what you missed in your rush to transcend biology. Living systems don't just solve problems. They create self-sustaining solutions that can adapt to new challenges. The discussions continued for days, then weeks, as both civilizations began to understand the potential of combining their approaches. The Vexteri shared their advanced quantum engineering knowledge, while humanity taught them about biological adaptation and evolution. Together, they began developing new technologies that merged the best of both worlds: crystalline systems that could adapt and evolve, biological systems enhanced by quantum engineering. The Vexteri's harvesting crisis found its solution not in stripped resources, but in learning how to create self-sustaining quantum systems inspired by Earth's life forms. Perhaps, Ixel reflected during one session, their crystalline form showing patterns that the humans now recognized as wonder. True advancement isn't about leaving our origins behind, but about understanding them more deeply. Dr. Martinez stood in the Nautilus's observation dome one last time before the facility would be converted into the first joint human Vexteri research center. The bioluminescent displays of deep-sea life seemed different now, not just beautiful, but profound. These simple organisms had shown an advanced civilization that their fundamental assumptions about progress were flawed. They came looking for resources, she wrote in her final report, but found something far more valuable: a new way of seeing the universe. They thought they were superior because they had transcended biology, only to discover that they had missed the greatest teacher of all, life itself. The quantum coral continued to grow and evolve in the depths, its bioengineered organisms creating ever more complex quantum patterns. But now it wasn't just a defense system. It was a bridge between two civilizations, a living proof that the future belonged not to those who rejected their origins, but to those who learned to build upon them. Humanity had demonstrated not just their capability to defend themselves, but their ability to turn potential enemies into allies through understanding and innovation. The Vexteri had arrived as would-be exploiters and remained as partners, their crystalline certainty transformed into a new appreciation for the complexity and potential of biological life. As Sarah watched the patterns of bioluminescence dance in the darkness, she reflected that perhaps this was humanity's greatest strength, not our technology or our weapons, but our ability to learn, to adapt, and to show others that there was always another way forward. The thunder had passed, and in its wake came not destruction, but enlightenment.